This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we are back talking about your firm's marketing strategy and specifically just how you feel about it and your confidence in it. And I know a lot of lawyers out there, especially, there's a lot of frustration around their marketing strategy, whether it's from results or maybe they just lack confidence in it. Maybe they don't fully understand it. The expectations weren't set, or maybe they just lack confidence in themselves. And so, whatever it is, we're going to try to figure it out today. And joining us this week to discuss that is Lori Pulvermacher from Atticus Advantage. Lori, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it. It's always an honor to be invited to join podcasts and be able to speak. And so I thank you for allowing me to be a part of this and to connect with your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for people who don't know, I found you actually through our good friend Molly McGrath's podcast. I know you've been on her show a couple of times. And free plug, Molly does a lot of great work with hiring and an admin boot camp that she runs. So definitely check that out as well. But before we jump into our main topic, tell everybody just a little bit about your background and why, you're the person to talk about this subject today.
Well, I don't know if I'm the person, but I'm passionate about it nonetheless. So we'll start there. Lori Pulvermacher, as you mentioned, I'm a practice advisor with Atticus. Now, Atticus has been around for more than 30 years. We support our attorneys and firms specifically, oftentimes in the gaps that they have in their business. So I often like to say that attorneys are great practitioners in their pursuit to become amazing business professionals, and that's where we like to help them. Marketing specifically has been something that's been a part of my career my entire life, and so different forms and different execution of that at different points in my career, certainly. But in the work that I've done with attorneys for the past 20 years, this is a big piece of it because, again, our attorneys are brilliant practitioners, and they've been groomed to be such, and that doesn't always lend itself naturally to the marketing aspect. But so many of the attorneys that I work with are solo and small firm practitioners, which means that they're also the business owner, which means they also have to market. Otherwise, who knows what success they're going to have with that business.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you made a really good point there in that the business owner. We've also been having a lot of conversations on this show and just talking about how, lawyers very analytical. They just want to be able to sit down and do their legal work, right? They're not necessarily wired for all of the other aspects that come with running a business. And with that, like you said, is the marketing. And so why do you think that so many firm owners are a little uncomfortable marketing themselves?
Yes, wouldn't it be great if we could just sit behind our desk and do the work and the business just naturally came in? Unfortunately, that's not the reason, or that's not the reality. But the reasons that I've heard for why attorneys don't like marketing themselves have been varied, quite frankly. But a lot of times again, it might be in the way that they've been groomed and formally trained, but they might deem it as unethical. Oftentimes they definitely see it as salesy, as pushy, and they don't want to associate with that. For those that have tried it or dabbled with it, they have the feeling of it doesn't work, it costs too much. And then those that might be a little bit more self-aware might be the ones that tell themselves, I just don't know how to do it. I don't know what to do. I don't feel comfortable doing it. Some may be dealing with imposter syndrome. And I think that's something that we can all relate to. But there's also a fear of judgment or criticism. I mean, naturally to market, you have to promote yourself and put yourself out there. And when we do that, we open the doors to potential criticism. And that is often a hard hurdle to get over for many of us. There's also the belief, John, that if I'm just a really great attorney, I don't have to market. Why would I have to market if I'm just that good, right? But
Yeah.
as we know, the reality is if we're not marketing, our business is going to grow stagnant or decline. And especially nowadays, consumers just have such immediate access to everything, regardless of the service or specialization of a practice. And oftentimes, we're seeing very saturated and competitive markets. So it's impossible not to market. But I think it's important for folks to know that there are different ways to market, and I think we're going to spend some time today, John, talking about how to be authentic in their approach to that. And what I'd like to tell attorneys is the good news is you don't have to love marketing. You don't have to love it. You just have to do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I want to touch on something that you said a couple of minutes ago. You talk about how, lawyers might feel like it's unethical or they might feel like it's too salesy or anything, which is really ironic because it seems like the majority of law firms, the way they market is just calls to action 100% nonstop. It's always call our office, book a
Right.
call, get a consultation,
Mhm.
which that is nothing but salesiness,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and why I don't that's such a weird connection to make. It's like, well, cool. You don't have to be that way
Yeah.
because there are so many other ways to do it.
Mhm.
And I think, you talked about it, you hit on it there towards the end. It's all about, the authenticity of it. And
Right.
so how do you sort of begin to craft that message so that, it doesn't come off as salesy, but is still very true and authentic to who they are as an individual?
Right. And again, that's where, I alluded, there are a multitude of different ways to market, the
Mhm.
call our office, get the consultation, that's the radio ads, the TV ads, the billboards, the things that are, there and screaming that have to have that call to action. And
Mhm.
often those are the mechanisms that people go, oh, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that, or I don't want to spend that kind of money. So what else can I do? And it's really about finding ways to market and share your story or share your message.
Mhm.
So it's important to understand that authenticity is going to come from us being our true self, and genuinely finding ways to connect with our audience. So the first way to do that is really we have to know who our audience is. Who are we trying to connect with? What are their needs? What are the things that they value? And what's going to speak to them? What's going to
Mhm.
motivate them? We want to kind of tailor a message and a solution that resonates with that audience. And then the next thing we want to do is really define our purpose. I had a conversation with an attorney I worked with recently, and it was an aha moment for her because she knew the what. She knew the what of what she was trying to do, but until we went through the exercise of why that audience, why that drive, why that purpose, she didn't have a story. She didn't have the marketing meat, if you would, to go out with. The what isn't enough. So defining the purpose and really understanding what are you trying to achieve, whether you're just trying to inform, inspire, persuade, whatever that might be, but make sure that you're really focused in on that, and that's going to tie to who your audience is. Authenticity also is going to be, what values you have, what stems from you. So I always talk with attorneys who say, well, I got an attorney, in the county over that does this, or I know this person that does that. Those things might work for you as well. But oftentimes we look at an example and we try to emulate that, and there's a disconnect because
Mhm.
it's not who we are. It's we're adopting a persona, if you would. So we really have
Yeah.
to understand who we are and what's natural to us. How do we talk? What's our style? And wrap it around that. And then there's the story piece of this
Mhm.
also. We all have a story to tell. I think we can lend some personal insights into who we are and allow people to see us and understand us. And that's going to connect. It's a lot easier for us to talk about our story.
Yeah.
And we also need to know that people connect with that. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
But for the authentic message piece of this, I think it's really important that your audience is trying to figure out, what do I do with this, understands that this is an evolution. Oftentimes when I'm working with attorneys on trying to craft their message or really understand what their story is, it doesn't happen on day one. And one of the exercises I'll often put them through is, talk with others and have others give you insight. And then the most important thing in creating authenticity after you've infused yourself into it is test it out on
Yeah.
others, practice it, say it, and do it over and over again until it feels really natural, because that's when you truly grab that authenticity.
Yeah, and I mean, so much to unpack there. Like you talk about an aha moment. I literally had one while you were talking, and it was like, of course, lawyers and their messaging is going to be straight calls to action, because prior to the digital age, that's all they could do with their marketing for the most
Right.
part, right? That was all they could put on the billboards or on like a yellow pages ad or something like that. And
Mhm.
they've just carried that over into their email or into their social media or onto their website. And you don't have to do that. It's completely different, especially with the way that people engage online, and whether it's social media or just even then they want to have that more intimate connection, beyond just how do I get in touch with these people? I need to know, you know, is this really the right person? But does this person truly understand me? And I
Mhm.
think that's kind of that's that realization that I had, is that that's just been they've just carried that over, and they just haven't adapted yet or really realized that it's just a completely different way that you need to market in order to get the most out of it.
Right, and then this even infiltrates into, for a lot of attorneys that I work with, they have, an initial consultation or an initial review, determine, what are next steps, are we engaging,
Mhm.
and so the same is true there. This shouldn't be a hard sales situation, and it shouldn't be you having to download how brilliant you are and your pedigree and everything else in order to convince the client. It's really about you resonating with them and for them to understand, I've been here, I've done this, I understand your situation, I understand your objectives, and I can do this. Not because I have all of these qualifications, but because I can speak to you in a way that resonates with you.
Yeah, and it's just like, kind of like you said, just humanizing that firm a little bit, because especially this is what we see on social media. People, when they're interacting with brands or businesses, they're not looking to be sold to, they're just looking to have that interaction. And
Right.
so, if your social media content or even any other kind of content that you're putting out online is just constant calls to action, calls to book a call, a consultation, whatever, that's going to drive people away. And it makes sense then why a lot of lawyers are frustrated with social media or feel like it's a waste of time, or they don't generate leads from it, because they're actively pushing people away with their content rather than making those connections with them.
Well, right. The connection is the biggest, component to this. And I think that's where we all struggle. Great. I know I need to connect. How? What does that mean? You said something a
Mhm.
moment ago, Don, that just reminded me of a quote I love, which is, people love to buy, they hate
Mhm.
to be sold to, right?
Yeah.
So, how do I create a process and experience that allows them to buy without
Mhm.
feeling sold? And it's kind of the art of self discovery, and it's nurturing that relationship that's going to lead
Yeah.
to the prospect or the client saying, yes, this is my choice and this is what I want, and you're the person I want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk a lot about, the different kinds of content that you could post, share behind the scenes stuff, share what it's like just being in your office, and you don't have to cross ethical lines there. And
Right.
in the conversations that I've had, and heard with other lawyers, there's this weird sort of hesitation that there's this concern that, like, sharing pictures behind the scenes in their office, or even anything that's not like strictly by the book, is somehow going to break some sort of ethics rule, or people are going to kind of get the wrong impression about, maybe they're endorsing something that they're really not, or anything like that. But it doesn't, it's really not that deep, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's,
Oh,
people
we
just
tend to
want to.
overanalyze more than we
Right.
we need to. But I mean, I've had people ask me, like, "Do you think it's appropriate to have pictures of your children behind you?" And this is my workspace, and this is my home. And so, yes, and the people that I work with, by and large, are parents. They resonate with that. And we have
Yeah.
a commonality in that as
Yeah.
well. But it is, we overthink it, we overanalyze, and oftentimes I just find this as excuses that we make for why we can't do something or why we shouldn't do something. When if we really peel back the onion and uncover it, we have insecurities about something at some degree, and that's why we're not willing to do it, right? And so,
Yeah,
even if there are concerns about the photos, or you got a blank wall somewhere, you can do something with something in your office.
exactly.
But
Yeah,
what you're alluding to is letting people see a preview of who you are, who your team is, the team that's going to go to work for them. As a client, I want to know that my attorney is skilled and knowledgeable. I make that assumption when I see the website and I see the biography. I don't need them to convince me. What I need to convince is that they have my best interests at heart, and that they get me and I get them.
yeah, absolutely. So one of the other things that you brought up a few minutes ago is, finding that unique story and that authentic story. And I've had conversations with several lawyers. A lot of them uh, come from more rural areas, smaller towns, 50,000 or fewer.
Right.
And the common theme that I hear a lot is, well, I don't have a story. I'm just a boring old small town lawyer. I just process estate plans for people. I don't really do anything special. What do you say to someone who sort of has that mindset, and how do you begin to kind of unpack some of their action, some of the things that are actually unique about them and where a story might come from?
Right. I think many times it's hard for us to discover or articulate our unique attributes or our
Mhm.
personal story. A lot of us struggle with talking about ourselves, or being,
Mhm.
again, able to adequately articulate components of who we are, or our story, or even give enough reflection to go, hey, that might be an element that will resonate with someone, right? So, sometimes, again, we have to go outside of ourselves and maybe tap on someone else to help us, through this journey. And so when I'm working with an attorney, I want to remind them that everyone has a unique perspective, right? You have your life experiences, you have your background, you have your journey, you have your why, you have your
Mhm.
passion. So even if you think that you're just the most ordinary, most normal person that doesn't have anything exciting, there are likely aspects that set you apart from others. So I often try to encourage them kind of to reflect on what their life journey was. Why did they go into law school? Why did they choose the particular service area that they went into? And what are some of the things that they love about what they do, and for the clients that they serve, right? And then I
Yeah.
also want them to understand that their voice matters, even if they're ordinary and normal and small town America and nothing exciting. Everyone has something valuable that they can contribute. And again, you never know how your passions, your experience, your insights can impact others. And when just sharing them and telling their story allows for that connectivity, and allows them to understand maybe even parts of themselves that they
Mhm.
didn't, right? Because not only do our attorneys have great insights into their journey, but they have all of these other amazing, unique perspectives that they bring in from every client they've ever worked with. And ultimately, even if it isn't this very specific honed thing, they can take aspects of all of the different experiences they've had to create a story, right? And we've talked about authenticity. So again, we really have to embrace who our true selves are,
Mhm.
and continue to bring that in. But I also really enjoy helping professionals consider what their potential impact is. What is the potential impact that their story or their message has on other people? And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit in that vein. Some
Yeah.
of our attorneys are doing extraordinary things, and making significant differences in the lives of the clients that they work with and serve. And I think the way in which they got there is relevant and important, and really, again, going to resonate with somebody else going through similar situations, right? One of
Yeah.
my favorite people in my life has a great story about the reason they got into law, and how it was very much tied to their family, right? A
Mhm.
mother, a grandmother, an aunt, somebody that drove you to make this, right? Especially if you've made any transition in your law journey over the years. what were the things that impacted that? So again,
Yeah.
it can be hard for us to discover and articulate those things about ourselves. So talk to your spouse, talk to a close friend, talk to colleagues. How would they describe you? What do
Yeah.
they think is unique about you? What do they think set you apart, right? And then if you have any degree of experience with clients and you've got some satisfied clients, what do they appreciate about you? What do they feel like you do really well? How did you make them feel? Okay, so these are
Yeah.
all really great indicators of those special qualities that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing to keep in mind is like, you're not going to get 100% of your audience. Like, I was at a conference a couple of days ago, and one of the speakers, I can't remember who it was, but he was talking about how 10% of your audience is going to love you no matter what. All right. No matter what you do or say, they're going to be behind you 100%. There's also going to be 10% who just hate you or don't like you. Hate's a strong word. They just don't care. Like,
Yeah.
maybe they don't like the way you say certain words,
Mhm.
or they don't like your
Like
color scheme. Right. Yeah. Something about you is just, they're never going to vibe with you. And that's fine. Don't worry about them. But you've got a huge cross section there in between of
Mhm.
people that you can reach and connect with. And being able to do those things, like you said, is what's going to really make those giant leaps
Mhm.
towards connecting with more and more of those people.
Right. Right, absolutely. Like I said, it's all about human connection at the end of the day, and the vast majority of attorneys are in the people business,
Yeah.
and so you've got to be able to connect with your audience.
Yeah. So moving beyond the messaging aspect of it, I want to talk to you for a little bit about referrals, because I know those are so important to law firms out there. Um, One of the questions that we asked in our trends report was just how law firms ask for referrals. And I was actually kind of shocked. 45% of our respondents said that at least part of their referral strategy is just kind of hoping that it happens.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and you spoke on it a little bit earlier, how a lot of lawyers just feel like that they do such a great job that that
Mhm.
should just be
Right.
automatic and come into it. But we also
Or they
talk a lot of
feel
the
that it
time.
should,
Yeah.
yeah, they feel that it should be obvious. It should be
Mhm.
obvious that if you know somebody who needs what I do, then they would just send it to me. I shouldn't have to ask for them. It should be this obvious thing that they know. And it couldn't be further from the truth, right? Even the
Mhm.
people who love us and are our biggest cheerleaders in life, if they don't know that we want business, that we
Mhm.
need business, that we value their referrals, it's not top of mind for them, right? And oftentimes we will discover too that attorneys have a great they do a really good job of maybe complaining or emphasizing how busy they are, right?
Mhm.
And so if I'm hearing that you're busy, that you're working a lot of hours, I'm not going to be inclined to send you business because I don't want to burden you further. I'm going to assume, well, you have business coming out of your ears. You don't need it from me, right? So
Yeah.
we make a lot of assumptions, and I think step one: stop making assumptions. Assume nobody knows anything about what you do or how you develop and earn new business, and that it's your job to educate them on that.
Yeah, and it's such a great point. And the other thing that I try to tell people is just think about, even in your own life, how many things are competing for your attention.
Yes.
There's so many different things going on. You scroll through your social media feed, so many people posting different things that you're trying to keep up with, so many shows on Netflix you're trying to keep up with, whatever it is. And look, you may be super passionate about your job and the work that you do, and that's great. you know, Even, outside of like super catastrophic things like getting someone out of going to jail for the rest of their life or something like that, most people, the legal world is just nowhere near the top of their hierarchy.
Right. Right. And we're very self-absorbed, and it's the best of intentions, but
Mhm.
it's important to understand that people, the majority of people genuinely want to help. And when asked to help someone, they will find ways or look for ways to do that. But they have to be asked first.
Right. So then how do you confidently ask for referrals? What kind of systems can you put in place? What kind of tips do you have for
Right.
people so that they're not just hoping, they can actually actively make sure that those sorts of things are coming in?
Right. So I do have some tips that I'll share, but I also want to state that even professionals who are consistently and effectively asking for referrals, they still have hesitation. They
Mhm.
still have head trash around it. And I don't know that I know someone personally who is 100% confident in asking for referrals every single time. But those that are doing it and having success, they're doing it anyways. They're doing it despite that lack of confidence. So I just want to share that, you might
Yeah.
not ever be fully confident, but embrace the degree of
Yeah.
confidence that you can. And I get it. Asking for referrals can be a really delicate matter for attorneys for all of the reasons that we've already talked about, John. And
Yeah.
and they want to be professional. They don't want to be pushy. They don't want to seem needy or desperate. That's a big one that I get a lot. And they want to figure out, like, how do I articulate that I want business without also doing the other things. So some of the tips that I would lend for that is to make sure that you're personalizing the request, right? So this
Hmm.
isn't spray and pray, or again, say nothing and hope kind of thing.
Right.
Or what I see a lot of folks do is they'll include something in their signature block of their email. It's there. People see it every time they get an email. Do they? Do people actually look through your signature block every single time they receive an email from you? They're just
Hmm.
looking at the meat of the content, right? But
Right.
so we want to make sure that we're personalizing it and that we're reaching out to individuals, doing so with our current or former clients is great. Doing so with our existing referral sources is great. Let them know that you appreciate their business or the business that you've sent to them in the past, and that you're always looking for ways to expand your client base, and that you'd appreciate any referrals that they could provide. Right. So you're being on purpose about this. Again, not doing so in a passive way.
Yeah.
Um, you can further support that and make it much more powerful if you're specific and you know who your ideal client is. So just, rather than just asking for a referral, you can be really specific in the type of client that you're looking for or the type of case that you'd love to acquire, right? You really want to know who your ideal client is, the types of challenges that they face, the ways that you can help them, because the more specific you are on that, the more you put a picture in the head of the person you're talking to. And,
Yeah.
and they can go, oh, that sounds like this person, or I think I know somebody like that,
Yeah.
right? So you want to make sure that you're being specific. As an example, if you're a family law attorney, you probably handle divorce cases, but you probably don't want all and any divorce cases coming your way, right? So a divorce or family law attorney may prefer to work with individuals who are going through a divorce or a separation, who also own a substantial amount of assets or maybe have complex assets. And they may prefer to work with a couple who isn't looking to settle. They want to fight it out. They want to go to litigation, and that's the type of case they want. They don't want
Hmm.
the easy case. They don't want the client who rents, has no children, and just wishes to settle amicably, right? Those are two different clients, both
Yeah.
divorce clients, but very different. So talk to your audience about what your ideal client looks like in the circumstances so they can really picture that. And then
Yeah.
the last piece of advice I would give on this, John, is just make sure that you're following up. I can't tell you how often this gets neglected, but when you get a referral, be sure that you're following up with that person and thanking them for sending that client to you. Again, whether this is a professional referral source or it's a client, make sure that they know that you appreciate the trust that they put in you and in your business to send that person, because they're kind of vetting and going to bat for you by saying,
Yeah.
hey, this is the attorney you need to work with, right? And
Yeah.
I would definitely encourage them to send thank you cards or to send a gift of appreciation, especially if
Yeah.
this is the very first referral that they've ever sent to you, or especially if this is someone who's sending you consistent business over a period of time. Periodically, you're stopping and saying, hey, thanks for the last 5 cases. Thanks for the continued trust. Thanks for continuing to recommend my team for your clients. And again, you're thinking about annual gift giving. You're thinking of ways to really show appreciation, especially if the contribution they are making to your practice has a significant impact on your annual revenue. So,
Yeah.
again, if you receive referrals, make sure you're saying thank you. But if you receive referrals that are not a good fit, this is also a great opportunity to reach out to your referral sources and just an opportunity to kind of revisit who your ideal client is so they can make sure that they're aligning that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I love about what we do here in terms of the content that we create for our clients. It's because it accomplishes a lot of what you said. And so if you do feel like you don't have enough time to properly give those people the attention they deserve, or maybe you don't feel super confident talking to your audience directly about what's a perfect fit for you, the content that you create, blog articles you write, videos that you make, emails that you send out can communicate those sorts of things, and you can get it out in mass and
Yeah.
really start driving in those referrals, even from people that you may not have even expected them to come from.
Right. And I would say too, marketing is a multifaceted machine in any well-run business. And so we put a lot of emphasis at Atticus on that referral marketing piece of it, because, a lead coming to you via a strong referral source versus, a Google ad as an
Mhm.
example, not the same measurement of lead,
Right.
right? They both don't become great clients for you, but the process in getting there is certainly not the same. And so, but your referral sources want to see that you are setting yourself apart, that you are a thought leader, and that you are demonstrating a degree of credibility that, again, when they kind of are vetting you or they're going to bat for you, saying this is the attorney to work with, there's a due diligence that often happens with clients, right? Decades ago, it probably would have been, this is the person to talk to and this is the person to work with, and no other thought would have been given. John said I should work with you, I'm working with you. Now it's
Yeah.
like, well, John mentioned I should work with you, but I'm just curious because I'm a typical consumer. I'll
Yeah.
go online, I'll look at your website, I'll look at your social media channels, and so I want some digital footprint that demonstrates some credibility to support John's referral.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last area of marketing that I wanted to talk to you about before we wrap up here is cost, right? Because nothing's free. Got to
Mhm.
spend money to make money. So in your experience and how, especially the more comfortable you feel about, the ROI that you're going to get, the more willing you are to spend on things like that. But in general, how much should a firm be allocating to their marketing budget in terms of like a ballpark percentage?
Yeah, and this is a good question and something I wish more business owners gave some thought to. As a general rule, the Small Business Administration says that small businesses should be spending 7 to 8% of their gross annual revenue on marketing related expenses. When we're working with people at Atticus, we advise that small and stable firms are allocating anywhere between 4 and 10% of their
Mm.
gross annual revenue. Again, these are general guidelines. If
Right.
you are just opening your doors and getting established, or if you are in a hyper competitive market, you're going to need to spend more, right? I work with attorneys who are spending 20 to 30% of their annual revenue on marketing expenses, but these are PI attorneys in Florida, where there's no
Right.
shortage of PI attorneys
Right.
in Florida. So, you want to make sure, again, I think the guideline rule here is spend something and make sure you know how much of that you're spending. I love working with businesses on budgeting because it gives them a comparison. All too often, we try to make as much money as possible, and we know we need to spend money to make money in a sense, but how much money should I be spending, right? So if we're looking at our expenses as a percentage of the revenue, it gives us a really good measurement of what we should expect to pay, rather than just kind of arbitrarily coming up with a budget or saying, I should do this type of marketing because I hear other people are doing it, and then go seek it out and go, oh wait, that's way expensive, I'm not spending that kind of money. Is it way expensive? Compared to what, right? So it just gives us a lot more sound decision making in our marketing expense, and gives us, I feel, flexibility and permission to be a little bit more confident in spending on the marketing piece of it. And again, this could take multiple forms.
Yeah.
I think it's important that there are going to be expensive marketing options, right? There are also going to be more affordable marketing options. Referral marketing and asking for referrals, that requires time and effort. So that's an expense. Those that I work with that say, I am not doing that, I'm not coming out from behind my closed door, I only want, business coming to me directly, they're going to spend a lot of money on the digital and print, formats. Those that are really, focused on the referral networking and marketing piece of it, they're going to spend more time out of the office. And so you have to determine what the trade-off is. In my experience, a nice, well-rounded approach is pretty good, and keep things sustainable.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of good insight there. I'm just thinking back, and there's just like so many good little sound bites that we could even just take from this episode. Just so much great insight. Let everyone know what you've got going on over at Atticus and how they can learn more about what you guys do.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'd love to invite your audience to join me on June 27th. John, we're offering a complimentary discussion, and I'm going to be leading that discussion. So it's a webinar, so you can attend from wherever you are, but we're focusing specifically on LinkedIn as a social media platform to leverage, to grow your business, grow your network, and create credibility like we talked about. So it's a really great platform for business professionals, especially, again, if they're looking to expand network and increase the number of referrals that they're getting. So, John, I presume we can drop some information in when we go live with this, but we always have more information on our website. Our website is atticusadvantage.com, and under the What We Do, there's a webinars component to the menu, and you can find out more there. And I encourage and invite your audience to email me directly should they have questions or want more information, and they can reach me at Lori P, that's LORIP, at atticusadvantage.com.
Awesome. Yep. And we will have that webinar link in the show notes. So head on over there and get registered for it this week. One final question for you before we wrap up here is, if you had one final piece of advice for our audience, what would it be?
One final piece of advice. I would encourage your audience to embrace the power of planning. All right. Planning is such an essential piece of unlocking a business's true potential, whether it's mapping out what your day looks like, strategizing your financials and doing your budgeting, prioritizing your tasks, nurturing your team's potential. Firms that are meticulously planning are achieving remarkable success. So I want your audience to know that investing time in planning for your business is not wasted effort. And really, when we plan with purpose, we're going to achieve far greater heights with our business.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. And, whether you have some sort of ecosystem that you use, I know for us internally, we use something called EOS that helps us plan and set goals and all that. And it's been a huge help since we've implemented. So if you have something like that, awesome. But even if you don't, I absolutely agree that just doing any sort of planning and goal setting and stuff like that is really going to help drive your firm forward. Well, Lori, this has been absolutely incredible. I love all of the insight that you shared. I know all of you out there got something from it. And thank you all for continuing to listen. If you have not done so yet, please leave a rating and review wherever you are listening to the show. It helps us get out in front of more people, helps more folks like you listen to the show and just join this really cool community that we've got growing here. And so would really appreciate if you helped us out with that. And that's going to do it for us this week. Lori, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.